I never thought the most painful words I'd ever hear would come from my own son's mouth, much less that he'd say them while I was standing just 10 feet away, hidden behind an airport column. My name is Anthony. I'm 68 years old, and what I'm about to tell you transformed my life forever. It was exactly 6 months ago. I had just paid for an entire trip to Hawaii for my son, Michael, his wife, Trish, and my 2 grandchildren. It was $15,000. My entire savings from 2 years working at the iron shop after I retired. Every penny I saved thinking about seeing them happy, about creating a family memory that would last a lifetime. But that morning at the airport, I heard something that made my blood run cold. This useless old man paid for the whole trip, but he's not coming, Michael said, laughing with his wife as they checked their tickets. Guess it's good for something, having such an idiot for a father. 2 weeks in Hawaii without having to put up with him. I was paralyzed. The suitcases I was carrying to help him fell from my hands. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone in the airport could hear it. But nobody saw me. Nobody noticed the old man who had just heard his son call him useless. An idiot. A burden. Trish cackled. That laugh I always thought sounded fake. But now, it sounded cruel. Merciless. Your dad is so naive, honey, she said. We told him there was no room at the hotel, and he bought it completely. Can you imagine putting up with him for 2 weeks? Complaining about his knees, going to sleep early, ruining all the pictures? My grandkids, Charlie and Lucy, were only 8 and 10. They didn't say anything. But they didn't defend me either. They just kept playing on their tablets like it was nothing. Before I continue, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon because you're not going to believe what you're about to hear. Because I didn't go home that day. I didn't call to say goodbye. I didn't wish them a good trip. I did something I never imagined I'd be capable of. Something that changed everything. Something that, when Michael returned from Hawaii 2 weeks later, left him completely destroyed. But to understand what I did, first, you need to know who I am. And why those words didn't just break my heart. They woke up something inside me that had been asleep for years. My name is Anthony Russo. I'm 68, and for 45 years I was an iron worker in a small shop on the outskirts of Chicago. I'm not a rich man, never was, but I was always an upright man, a hard worker, and above all, a father who gave everything for his family. My wife, Grace, died 5 years ago from pancreatic cancer. It was fast, so fast we didn't even have time to say goodbye the way we wanted. She was the soul of our house, the one who kept everyone together, the one who organized the Sunday dinners, the one who remembered the birthdays, the one who called Michael every week to see how he was. When she died, I felt like a part of me went with her. Michael was our only son. We had him late, when Grace was 38 and I was 40. A miracle, the doctor said, and for us he truly was. We raised him with love, with values, with respect. We paid for his business degree. We helped him buy his first car. When he married Trish, we gave them $30,000 for the down payment on their house. Grace adored him. My Mikey, she always called him, even when he was 35 and had 2 kids of his own. After Grace died, Michael came to visit me less and less. At first I understood. He had his life, his job, his family. Trish always found an excuse. The kids had soccer practice. She had a migraine. The traffic on the Dan Ryan was impossible. But I was still Grandpa. I still brought them presents at Christmas. I still sent them money when Michael told me things were tough at his company. I was still the one who paid for the big dinners when we did get together, which was happening less and less. I lived alone in a 3-bedroom house that Grace and I bought 30 years ago in a quiet neighborhood on the north side. A house full of memories, of photos on the walls, of the smell of cinnamon she always left in the kitchen on Sundays. A house that now felt too big, too empty, too quiet. I worked part-time at my old shop. Not because I desperately needed the cash, but because I needed to stay busy. I needed to feel like I was still useful, that I still had a purpose. The weekends were the worst. I'd call Michael on Saturday morning. "Pop, we're busy," he'd say. "Maybe another time, okay?" But another time never came, until one day, 7 months ago, I had an idea. An idea I thought would bring us back together as a family. An idea I thought would honor Grace's memory. I called Michael. "Son, I want to treat the whole family to a trip. To Hawaii. Your mom always wanted to go, remember? But we never had the money. Now I can do it. For her. For us." There was silence on the other line. Then Michael said, "Pop, that's a lot of money." "I know, son, but I've got it saved up. I want to do this. I want Charlie and Lucy to see the place their grandmother always dreamed of visiting. I want us to make new memories together." Another pause. Then, "Let me talk to Trish." 2 days later, he called me. "Pop, we're in. But the hotel we found only has room for 4. It's for 2 weeks, and hotels in Hawaii are crazy expensive. How about just we go? You can stay home and rest. And when we get back, we'll show you all the pictures." My heart sank, but I smiled through the phone. I always smiled. I always said yes. "Of course, son. No problem. You guys just enjoy yourselves." And just like that, for 2 months, I paid for everything. The flights, the hotel, the excursions, the food. The $15,000 I had saved by welding fences, repairing old gates, living on the bare minimum, all of it, just to hear, on the day of the trip, from behind a column at the airport, that my own son called me a useless old man, an idiot. But what Michael didn't know, what Trish couldn't imagine, was that Anthony Russo, the humble iron worker who always said yes, who always let things slide, had just woken up. And when a man who has lost everything he loves finally opens his eyes, he's capable of things nobody expects. It was a Tuesday morning, April 15th, a day I will never forget as long as I live. I'd gotten up at 5 a.m., like always. Made black coffee, no sugar. That's how I drank it since Grace died. She always made it for me with 2 spoons of sugar and a splash of milk, but now, the bitter coffee felt appropriate. It matched how my life tasted. I had ironed my blue shirt the night before, the same one I wore to Michael's wedding 12 years ago. I shaved carefully, put on aftershave, even trimmed my nails. I wanted to look presentable to see them off, for the family photo they had promised me before they went through security. One photo at the airport, Pop. For the memory, Michael had told me on the phone 3 days before. I drove to O'Hare International Airport in my beat-up '98 Ford Taurus. The traffic was light. I was listening to the radio, a classic rock station Grace used to love. Springsteen was playing softly as I thought about how proud she would be. Mikey was going to Hawaii with his kids, living the dream we never could. I got there 2 hours before the flight. I wanted to help them with their bags. Michael had said they were bringing 4 large suitcases. "It's 2 weeks, Pop. The kids need clothes for everything." I parked and walked toward Terminal 3. The airport was full of families. I saw a little kid running towards his grandfather with his arms wide open. The grandfather lifted him in the air and they both laughed. I smiled. Soon Charlie and Lucy would hug me like that. Or so I thought. I saw them before they saw me. They were at the check-in area. Michael was wearing a new leather jacket I hadn't seen before. Trish was wearing expensive sunglasses, the kind that cost what I used to make in a month. The kids were dressed perfectly, in brand-name clothes. I walked closer, carrying a bag. Inside were gifts for the trip. Hershey's bars for the kids. A beautiful scarf for Trish that I'd seen in a department store and thought she'd like. And for Michael, a vintage watch that had belonged to my father. My dad gave it to me before he died, and I wanted Michael to have it. It was gold, from the 1950s, easily worth $3,000. But then, when I was about 30 feet away, hidden behind a large airport column, I heard Trish's voice. "Did you let your dad know we were leaving?" she asked, checking her phone. "Yeah, I sent him a text this morning. Told him not to come, that the traffic was terrible," Michael answered, pulling out the passports. I hadn't received any text. I stopped. Something in their tone made me stay still, hidden. Something inside me said, "Wait, listen." "Better this way," Trish continued. "I don't want him ruining the pictures with his grumpy old face. Besides, 2 weeks of putting up with him would have been hell." "I know, right?" Michael said, laughing. "Can you imagine? Oh, my knees. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, back in my day, this cost less. No thanks. Let him stay home with his old scrap metal." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. The bag with the gifts felt heavy in my hands. My father's watch inside it suddenly felt like a rock in my heart. "Charlie, Lucy, come on," Trish called. The kids walked over. "Remember, if Grandpa calls while we're in Hawaii, you don't answer. Let it go to voicemail." "Why, Mommy?" Lucy asked with her innocent 8-year-old voice. "Because Grandpa talks a lot and he's boring, sweetie. We're on vacation. We don't want him wasting our time with his depressing stories." Charlie laughed. My 10-year-old grandson. He laughed. Michael said nothing. He didn't correct them. He didn't defend me. He just kept packing documents into his backpack like it was nothing. And then came the final stab, the sentence that changed everything. Michael turned to his family, smiling, and said, loud enough for me to hear him perfectly, "This useless old man paid for the whole trip, but he's not coming. Guess it's good for something, having such an idiot for a father. 2 weeks in Hawaii without having to put up with him. That's the best gift he could have given me. His absence. And his cash." Trish let out a cackle. That laugh that I now understood wasn't nervous, but genuinely cruel. My legs trembled. I wanted to scream. I wanted to step out from behind that column and confront them, to ask them how they could say those things. I, who had given them everything. I, who had just emptied my savings account for them. But I didn't. I just stood there, paralyzed, watching as my son, my only son, the boy I carried on my shoulders when he learned to walk, the kid I taught how to change a tire, the man I gave $30,000 to for his first home, called me useless, an idiot, a burden. The bag dropped from my hand. The chocolates rolled on the floor. The scarf got dirty. My father's watch, the watch that had survived 2 generations, made a dry crack against the marble floor. Nobody noticed. They just kept laughing. I bent down slowly. I picked up the items with trembling hands and walked backward, toward the exit, toward the parking garage, toward my old Taurus, which suddenly felt like the only safe place in the world. I sat in the driver's seat. I closed the door. And for the first time in 5 years, since Grace died, I cried. I cried in a way I didn't know I still could. I cried for the naive man I had been. For the father who gave everything and didn't even get respect in return. But as the tears fell, something else grew inside me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't self-pity. It was clarity. Cold, absolute, unforgiving clarity. And in that moment, sitting in my car, looking through the fogged-up windshield as my family boarded a flight paid for with my sweat, I made the most important decision of my life. I wasn't going to stay home waiting for their fake photos. I wasn't going to answer their phony calls. I wasn't going to keep being the old idiot they thought I was. I started the engine. I pulled out my cell phone and made a call that would change everything. "Rob, it's Tony. I need your help. Right now." Robert "Rob" Mendoza had been my best friend for 40 years. We met in the Army. He took a different path than me. He studied law, became an attorney, and now, at 70, he was one of the most respected estate lawyers in Chicago. He'd handled wills for businessmen, for politicians, for people with real money. But above all, he was a man who knew the law better than anyone. "Tony, what's wrong?" he asked, picking up on the second ring. His voice sounded worried. I never called him at this hour. "Rob, I need your help with something legal. It's urgent. Can you see me today?" There was a pause. "I'm at the office. Come down now. I'll wait." I drove straight from the airport to the Loop. Rob's office was in an old, elegant building near the river. I climbed the stairs slowly. Each step felt heavy, not from exhaustion, but from determination. When I walked into his office, Rob saw my face and knew immediately something serious had happened. He poured me a coffee without asking. He sat across from me and waited. I told him everything, from the Hawaii trip to the exact words I heard at the airport. Rob didn't interrupt me once. He just nodded, taking notes in a leather-bound notebook. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Tony," he said finally, taking off his glasses and cleaning them slowly. "What I'm about to say is as your friend, not your lawyer. Your son is a bastard, and his wife is a viper. I'm sorry, buddy, but it's the truth." I nodded. I couldn't deny it. "Now," Rob continued, putting his glasses back on and opening a folder. "As your lawyer, I have to tell you something important. 3 years ago, when Grace died, you asked me to draw up a will, remember?" "Yes." "In that will, Michael is the sole heir to everything. Your house, your savings, your 401k, everything. He's the 100% beneficiary. Correct?" "Correct." Rob leaned forward. "Tony, that will is still valid. If you died tomorrow, Michael would inherit roughly $750,000. I stared at him. I'd never added it all up. I never thought about my life in those kinds of numbers. "The house is worth at least $500,000, Rob continued. "You have about $250,000 in your savings and 401k combined. That's not counting the tools and antique ironworks you have, some of which I know are worth good money." $750,000, I repeated. "Approximately. And if you do nothing, Michael and Trish will inherit all of it. Every dollar, every tool, every memory of Grace. And from what you just told me, they'll sell it all before your body is cold." I felt sick. I could see it happening. Trish hiring a company to empty the house. Michael selling the tools I'd made with my own hands. Charlie and Lucy playing in rooms that were once mine, without even knowing who built them. "What can I do?" I asked. Rob pulled out several documents. "Legally, you can do several things. First, change your will. In Illinois, you can disinherit him, but he'll almost certainly contest it. It'll be a long, ugly fight. A much stronger, cleaner move is to leave him only his statutory share, the minimum legal amount, which we can argue is 1/3. The rest you can leave to whomever you want. A foundation, a friend, a charity. And it's final? Completely. Once signed and registered, it's law. Michael can't do anything. He can whine, he can cry, he can beg, but he can't change it. How long does it take? If we do it today, a week, maybe less. I have contacts at the registrars." I leaned back in the chair. My mind was working fast. Michael would be in Hawaii for 2 weeks. Plenty of time. "Is there anything else?" "Yes," Rob said. "Something you need to consider carefully." "What?" "If you do this, Tony, there's no going back. Your relationship with Michael will be over. You will possibly never see your grandkids again. Trish will make sure of that. And believe me, a woman like her can be very vindictive. Are you prepared for that?" I closed my eyes. I saw Charlie's and Lucy's faces. Innocent kids. But I also remembered that neither of them defended me at the airport. That Charlie laughed when his mother said I was boring. That Lucy didn't ask why I wasn't coming with them. And then I remembered Michael's exact words. "This useless old man paid. Guess it's good for something, having such an idiot for a father." I opened my eyes. "I'm prepared." Rob nodded slowly. Then let's do it. But Tony, I want you to do something first. I want you to go home. Think about it tonight. Sleep on it. And if you still feel the same way tomorrow, you come back here and we make it official. I knew he was right. This was too big a decision to make with a broken heart and a clouded mind. Deal. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, in the armchair where Grace used to knit. The house was completely silent. Only the wall clock marked the seconds. Tick, tock, tick, tock. I thought about everything. The diapers I changed. The sleepless nights when Michael had a fever. The guitar lessons I paid for 5 years. The suit I bought him for his first job interview. The hand I held when he married Trish. The $30,000 for their house. The $15,000 for Hawaii. And the words, useless old man, idiot, his absence and his cash. But I also thought about something else. Something Grace told me 3 days before she died. We were in the hospital. She could barely speak. I was holding her hand. Tony, she whispered with difficulty, promise me you won't let anyone disrespect you, not even Michael. Promise me you'll value yourself. Grace, don't talk like that. You're going to get better. Promise me, she insisted, squeezing my hand with what little strength she had left. I promise. That was one of the last coherent conversations we had. And now, 5 years later, I finally understood what she meant. Grace knew something I didn't want to see. She noticed things in Michael, in Trish, that I ignored because I didn't want to believe them. At 7 the next morning, I showered, dressed, and drove back to Rob's office. Are you sure? He asked when I walked in. More sure than I've ever been in my life. Then let's begin. For the next 4 hours, Rob and I worked on the new will. It wasn't easy. Every decision felt like cutting out a piece of my own heart. But it was necessary. The final document stated the following. First, Michael Russo would receive his statutory minimum share, 1/3 of the estate, approximately $250,000. Nothing more. Not the house, not the tools, not the memories. Second, the house would be donated to a foundation that helps elderly people abandoned by their families. A foundation Rob knew, personally. The house would be turned into a community center. Third, the rest of the money, $500,000, would be self-correction during drafting. The math here is tricky. Let's follow the new US logic. Total $750K. Son gets $250K, $1.3. House is $500K. That's the whole estate. This makes sense. Wait, the original had more. Let's readjust. New US logic, V2. Total estate, $900,000. House $600K. Savings OSH 401K, $300K. Son's 1-3 share, $300,000. He gets the cash. The house $600,000. Donated. This works perfectly. Let's restart that section. The final document stated the following. First, Michael Russo would receive his statutory minimum share, 1/3 of the estate, approximately $300,000 in cash, nothing more. Second, the house valued at $600,000 would be donated to the Golden Years Foundation, which helps seniors abandoned by their families. This house would become a community center. Third, my collection of antique, handmade tools would be auctioned. The money would go to the foundation. Fourth, my father's watch, the one I almost gave Michael at the airport, would be donated to the Chicago History Museum. And this is legal? Michael can't break it? I asked. It is 100% legal. And no, Michael can only claim his statutory share, which is already included. The rest is yours to do with as you please. And believe me, this will is ironclad. I drafted it personally. Perfect. I signed every page. Rob put his official stamp on it. 2 witnesses came in and signed too. It was done. It's done, Tony. It's registered. As of this moment, this is your official will. I stood up. I shook Rob's hand. Thanks, buddy. Don't thank me yet. The hard part comes next. What's next? Rob smiled. A smile I hadn't seen before, almost mischievous. Now, we wait. We wait for Michael to come back from Hawaii. And when he gets back, tanned and happy with pictures from the beach you paid for, then you give him the surprise of his life. I walked out of that office feeling different. Not lighter exactly, but stronger. Like I had gotten back something I'd lost a long time ago. Dignity, self-respect, control over my own life. Michael was in Hawaii spending my money, laughing at me with his wife. But I had something he didn't know. I had a plan, and I had the law on my side. And when he came back, that smile was going to be wiped right off his face. Forever. The first 3 days after signing the will were the strangest of my life. I woke up every morning expecting to feel regret, expecting that weight in my chest that tells you you've made a mistake. But it never came. Instead, there was something different. Something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. But there were dark moments too. Moments when the reality of what I had done hit me like a cold wave. The first night I sat in Michael's old bedroom, which I still kept exactly as he left it when he moved out 12 years ago. The blue walls, the high school football trophies, his graduation picture. I touched the pillow on his bed. It smelled like dust and time. I wondered when the last time was that Michael even came into this room. When was the last time he looked at these walls and remembered that he grew up here? That his mother read him stories here every night? That I sat here when he had nightmares and told him everything would be okay? What did I do wrong, Grace? I whispered into the empty air. Where did I go wrong? I waited for an answer I knew would never come. The dead don't talk, but sometimes in the silence, you can hear what you already knew in the bottom of your heart. I didn't do anything wrong. Michael chose to be who he is. On the 4th day, Rose, my neighbor, knocked on my door with a Tupperware full of lasagna. It was Sunday, like every Sunday for 5 years. Tony, you look tired, she said as she walked in, putting the lasagna in the kitchen with a familiar comfort. Are you eating right? Rose was a widow too, lost her husband 7 years ago in a car accident. She had a daughter who lived in Austin, and she visited her every couple of months. We'd been neighbors for 20 years, but we got close after we both lost our spouses. I'm fine, Rosie. Just thinking. She served me a plate of lasagna without asking. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where Grace and I had breakfast every morning for 30 years. Michael in Hawaii now? She asked, tasting the food. I nodded, saying nothing. And you stayed here, all alone, after paying for the whole thing? I looked at her. Rose was always direct, never malicious, but she didn't mince words. Yes? Tony, she said, putting down her fork. It's not my place to say, but that son of yours is ungrateful. Grace, rest her soul, would be furious. For the first time in days, I smiled. A small smile, but a real one. I know. So what are you going to do about it? That question surprised me. What do you mean? I know you, Tony. I've known you 20 years. I know when you're plotting something. You've got that look. The same look you had when you found out the shop owner was skimming your overtime. And you waited 6 months gathering proof before you confronted him. I laughed. I'd forgotten about that. She was right. I've always been patient. Too patient, maybe. But when I finally act, I do it right. Let's just say, I've taken certain measures, I said carefully. Rose studied me with those brown eyes that didn't miss a thing. Then she nodded slowly. Good. That boy needs to learn that actions have consequences. I didn't tell her about the will, not yet. But her support, her simple acknowledgement that I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed, meant more than she could ever know. The days turned into a week. Michael sent me occasional texts from Hawaii, short, emotionless messages. Hey, Pop. All good? Regards. Generic photos of the beach, of the hotel strip, No pictures of them. No pictures that showed they were actually thinking of me. I answered just as cold. Good. Be safe. Every night I sat in the workshop I had in the basement, the place where I'd spent thousands of hours welding, grinding, and forging. The smell of metal, of burnt oil, of welding flux. It was the only thing keeping me sane. I started a new project, a metal box, not too big, hand-forged with intricate designs. It was to hold the letters Grace wrote me when we were dating, letters I'd never shown anyone, letters I now read every night before bed. In one of them, written when we were 25, Grace wrote something that resonated differently now. Tony, my love, you're too good for this world, too generous. Sometimes I worry that people will take advantage of you. Promise me you'll always know when to draw the line. Promise me you won't let anyone, not even me, make you feel less than you're worth. I folded the letter carefully. My hands were shaking slightly. I promised Grace. And now, I'm keeping it. On the 10th day of their trip, Michael video called me. It was late at night for me, early in the afternoon for them. Pop, he said with a huge smile. Behind him, I could see the Hawaiian beach. Trish was sitting next to him with sunglasses on. The kids were eating shaved ice. Michael, I answered, my voice neutral. Just wanted to say hi. The kids send their love. Hi, Grandpa, Charlie and Lucy said in unison without looking up from their shaved ice. Hi, kids. There was an awkward silence. Michael didn't know what to say. I wasn't going to help him. Well, Pop, just wanted you to know we're having an amazing time. Thanks again for, making this possible. You're welcome. More silence. You okay, Pop? You sound weird. I'm perfectly fine, Michael. Enjoy your trip. See you when you get back. I hung up before he could answer. Trish looked at me strangely in those last seconds before the call cut. She sensed something. Vipers always have good instincts. The last week was the longest. Rob called me every 2 days. Everything set, Tony. You sure you want to do the confrontation? You could just send them a certified letter with a copy of the will. No, buddy. I want to see his face. I want him to know exactly why I did it. Then get ready, because it's going to be rough. I know. On the 14th day, the day they were coming back, I woke up at 5 a.m. No alarm. I just couldn't sleep. I showered, shaved, and put on my best shirt, the same blue shirt from the airport, but this time, ironed with more care. This time with a different purpose. I ate a quiet breakfast, toast and black coffee. I read the entire newspaper, something I hadn't done since Grace died. At 10 a.m., Michael sent a text. Pop, landed safe. We're exhausted. We'll talk tomorrow, I replied. No. Come to the house today at 6 p.m. It's important. 5 minutes passed before he replied. Is something wrong? 6 p.m. Don't be late. At 5 p.m., Rob arrived at my house. He was carrying his leather briefcase. Inside, certified copies of the new will. Ready? He asked. I poured myself a glass of water. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My heart was beating normally. I was at peace with what I was about to do. Ready! At 6 p.m. sharp, I heard Michael's car park outside. I heard the doors close, voices, footsteps on the porch. The doorbell rang. I opened the door. Michael was tanned. Trish was carrying a new, obviously expensive handbag. The kids looked bored, tired from the trip. Hey, Pop, Michael said, trying to hug me. I took a step back. Come in. We need to talk. Something in my tone made Michael's smile freeze. Trish looked at me with those hawk eyes. The kids walked in without saying hello, straight to the living room. Pop, what's wrong? We're tired from the flight. Sit down, I interrupted. My voice was firm, calm, but with an edge they had never heard before. They sat on the sofa. I remained standing. Rob walked out from the kitchen, holding his briefcase. Who's he? Trish asked, her tone defensive. This is Robert Mendoza. my attorney, and my friend. The color started to drain from Michael's face. "Pop, what is going on?" I took a deep breath. This was the moment everything would change forever, and I was completely ready. "Michael," I began, my voice as calm and hard as steel. 14 days ago, the day you left for Hawaii, I went to the airport 2 hours before your flight. I was carrying gifts, chocolates for the kids, a scarf for Trish, and for you, your grandfather's gold watch, the one he gave me before he died. It's worth $3,000. Michael blinked, confused. Trish crossed her arms. "I didn't come over because I stopped," I continued. "But I heard you. I heard both of you." The silence in the room became thick, heavy. Michael turned pale. "I heard you say, and I quote, 'This useless old man paid for the whole trip, but he's not coming. Guess it's good for something, having such an idiot for a father. 2 weeks in Hawaii without having to put up with him.' Pop, I'm not finished," I said, raising my hand. My voice didn't get louder, but the weight of my words filled every corner of the room. "I also heard Trish say that my presence would ruin the pictures, that 2 weeks with me would be hell. And I heard you tell my grandchildren not to answer my calls because Grandpa is boring and depressing." Charlie and Lucy looked at each other, uncomfortable. Lucy started to cry silently. Trish stood up. "Tony, you're misinterpreting." "Sit down." It was the first time in the entire conversation I had raised my voice. Trish sat immediately, stunned. I never yelled. Ever. "Misinterpreting?" I repeated with a bitter laugh. "Misinterpreting what, exactly? The word useless? The word idiot? The word old man? No, Trish. I heard you perfectly, and they were the clearest words I've ever heard in my life." Michael had tears in his eyes. "Pop, I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean what? You didn't mean for me to hear you, but you meant to say it. You meant to laugh about it with your wife. You meant to take my $15,000, my 2 years of savings from the shop, and spend it while you called me an idiot behind my back." Rob stepped forward, placing his briefcase on the coffee table. The sound of the leather on the wood echoed like a judge's gavel. "What your father is trying to tell you," Rob said, his voice professional and cold, "is that during the 14 days you were in Hawaii, he made certain legal decisions regarding his estate." "What decisions?" Trish asked, her voice now holding a barely disguised tone of panic. Rob opened the briefcase and took out several documents with official seals. "Mr. Anthony Russo has amended his last will and testament. The previous document, drafted 3 years ago after his wife's death, naming Michael as the sole universal heir, no longer exists." "What?" Michael jumped to his feet. "Pop, what did you do?" "I protected myself," I answered simply. "I did what your mother made me promise to do before she died. I valued myself." Rob continued, relentless. "The new will, signed, sealed, and officially registered 12 days ago, states the following. 1. Michael Russo will receive his statutory minimum share as a sole heir, which equates to 1/3 of the estate, approximately $300,000, in cash." "1/3?" Trish shrieked. "And the rest?" "The rest," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "The house we are in right now, valued at $600,000, will be donated to the Golden Years Foundation, which helps elderly people abandoned by their families. This house will become a community center." "You can't do that." Trish stood up again. "This is the family home. This is where the kids visited. The kids came here exactly 4 times in the last 2 years, I said with ice in my voice. 4. I counted. And each visit lasted less than an hour because you were always in a hurry to leave." Michael had his head in his hands. "Pop, please." Rob pulled out another document. "The remaining assets, including the antique tools and Mr. Russo's 401k, will be liquidated. The funds will be transferred to the same foundation. What about her? Trish asked, her mind clearly racing. What about who? That neighbor. Rose. What did she get? Rose, I said, feeling a deep satisfaction, will receive $50,000. The woman who, for 5 years, has brought me a hot meal every single Sunday. The woman who sat with me in the hospital when I had pneumonia last year. The woman who called me every night for the first week after Grace died, just to make sure I wasn't alone. That woman, who has no blood relation to me, has treated me with more love and respect in 5 years than you two have in the last 10. She's manipulating you, Trish screamed. She brainwashed you. This is undue influence. Rob smiled coldly. Ma'am, I met Rose Hernandez last week when Mr. Russo asked me to vet her before including her in the will. She is a woman of unimpeachable reputation. A widow, a hard worker, no criminal record, and furthermore, she knows nothing about this. Tony wanted it to be a surprise, so your accusation of manipulation is legally absurd and impossible to prove. Michael finally spoke, his voice cracking. Pop, do you really hate us that much? That question hurt more than I expected. I sat down in my armchair, the one where Grace used to knit. I looked at all of them. Michael, in tears. Trish, in a rage. The kids, terrified on the couch. I don't hate you, I said softly. That's the tragedy, Michael. I don't hate you. I still love you. You're still my son. But love doesn't mean being an idiot. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Love doesn't mean letting you call me useless while I spend my life savings to make you happy. I didn't mean it. You did mean it, I interrupted. You just didn't mean for me to hear it. And that's the difference. For years, your mother and I taught you values, respect, gratitude, humility, and somewhere along the way, you lost them. Or maybe you never really had them. We'll fight this, Trish spat. We'll see you in court. By all means, try, Rob said. But I warn you, this document is ironclad. It was drafted by me, a certified attorney with 40 years of experience. It was signed before witnesses. It is officially registered. And Mr. Russo is of perfectly sound mind, something I can certify as a professional and as his friend of 40 years. Besides, I added, pulling out my cell phone, I have this. I placed the phone on the table. On the screen was an audio recording. The date, April 15th. The location, O'Hare International Airport. You recorded? Michael was speechless. Not intentionally, I said. My phone was in my pocket. When I bent over to pick up the gifts that I dropped, I accidentally activated the voice recorder. 30 seconds of audio. Your voice, Trish's voice, crystal clear, saying every single word I described. That's illegal, Trish stammered. Is it? Rob finished for me. No, completely legal. You are in a public place. There is no expectation of privacy in an airport terminal, and it serves perfectly as evidence that my client's decision to change his will was based on real events, not on manipulation or senility. Michael collapsed onto the sofa, defeated. Trish stared at the wall, her mind obviously churning, trying to find a way out. Now, I said, standing up. The antique tools in this house, several of which I made with my own hands and are worth thousands, will be auctioned. The money goes to the foundation. Your grandfather's watch will be donated to the Chicago History Museum. Pop, that watch was for me, Michael said, his voice broken. It was, I nodded, until you decided I was a useless old man who didn't deserve to be on the trip I paid for. On that day, that watch stopped being yours. I walked to the door and opened it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm tired. You can leave. That's it? Trish asked, poison in her voice. You throw us crumbs and kick us out? The crumbs, I said calmly, are $300,000. More money than most people see in their entire lives, and it's more than you deserve after what you did. Michael stood up slowly. He walked toward me. For a moment, I thought he would try to hug me. Part of me wanted him to say the right words, to really apologize. But he didn't. "Mom was right about you," he said, his voice cold. "You've always been a bitter, stingy old man. She used to say all you knew how to do was hold a grudge. Those words were designed to hurt me, to make me doubt myself, to use Grace's memory against me. But they had the opposite effect." I smiled, a sad but genuine smile. "Your mother," I said softly, "never said that. Your mother loved me every single day of our marriage. And she specifically asked me, 3 days before she died, not to let anyone disrespect me, not even you. So don't you dare use her memory to manipulate me. It won't work." Michael left the house without another word. Trish followed, dragging the kids by the hand. Before I closed the door, Lucy, my granddaughter, turned around. "Grandpa." I looked at her, my 8-year-old granddaughter, innocent in all this. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm sorry." It was 2 words, just 2, but they came from a real place. "I know, Lucy. Me too." I closed the door. Rob put his hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. "Yeah, I'm okay. For the first time in 14 days, in 5 years, maybe in my whole life. I'm really okay." It's been 6 months since that afternoon. 6 months since Michael walked out of my house, his face broken and his pride destroyed. 6 months since Trish shot me a look so full of hate it could have frozen hell. 6 months since I closed that door and felt, for the first time in years, that I was taking back control of my own life. The first few days were strange, silent. I kept waiting for the regret to hit. That inner voice telling you that you went too far, that you exaggerated, that you should just forgive and forget. But that voice never came. Instead, something completely unexpected arrived. Peace. A week after the confrontation, Michael tried to call me. 17 calls in 3 days. I didn't answer a single one. Then came the texts. First, angry texts, accusing me of being a hateful old man, of ruining his family, of being cruel to my own grandchildren. "Mom would be ashamed of you," he wrote in one. "I'm having lunch," I replied. Then when he realized the anger wasn't working, came the pleading texts. "Pop, please, let's talk. Can we fix this? I made a mistake. I'm sorry." But they were empty words. There was no real remorse in them, only panic over the money he had just lost. A month later, Michael hired a lawyer. Rob called to inform me they had filed a motion to contest the will, claiming undue influence from a third party, Rose, and diminished mental capacity of the testator, me. "Do they have a chance?" I asked. Rob laughed. "None. I've already submitted the audio from the airport as evidence that your decision was completely rational and justified. On top of that, the judge assigned to the case is a 65-year-old woman whose own mother was abandoned in a nursing home by her kids. I guarantee you she's going to read this case very carefully." He was right. 3 months later, the judge dismissed the contest. The will was ratified as valid and final. Michael would have to settle for his $300,000. Nothing more. The news came on a Tuesday afternoon. Rob came over personally to tell me, bringing a bottle of bourbon he'd been saving for a special occasion. "A toast," he said, pouring 2 glasses. "To justice, to dignity, and to old men who don't let themselves get pushed around anymore." We clinked glasses. The bourbon tasted like victory, but also like something deeper, liberation. During those months, my life changed in ways I never anticipated. Rose found out about the will when Rob contacted her officially. She came to my house in tears, insisting she couldn't accept that much money. "Tony, it's too much. I just did what any decent neighbor would do." "Exactly," I said, taking her hands. "You did what any decent person would do. And it turns out that's more valuable than any blood tie. Take the money, Rosie. Use it to visit your daughter in Austin more often, to travel, to live without worrying. You deserve it more than anyone I know." She finally accepted, though she still cries when she mentions it, and she still brings me lasagna every Sunday, though now I also take her out for dinner on Fridays. Sometimes we watch old John Wayne movies. Sometimes we just talk. It's simple, but it's real. The Golden Years Foundation contacted me personally. The director, a woman named Carmen, came to see the house. "Tony," she said, walking through the rooms, "this is more than a donation. It's a gift to hundreds of seniors who need a place to feel valued. We'll have workshops here, cooking classes, bingo nights. This house will have life again. It will have a purpose again." She showed me the plans. The living room would be a meeting space. The dining room, a community library. My basement workshop would remain intact as a place to teach welding and ironworking to young people. "And my bedroom?" I asked. "The one I shared with Grace." Carmen smiled gently. "We thought we'd turn it into a memory room, a quiet place where people can come to remember their own lost loved ones, with photos, with peace. If you'll allow us, we'd like to put a plaque with your and Grace's names by the entrance." I couldn't speak for a moment. I just nodded. A scholarship in Grace's name was announced in September. 10 young men and women from low-income families received full support to study skilled trades: ironworking, electrical, plumbing. Trades the modern world sometimes looks down on, but that are still essential. At the ceremony, they asked me to say a few words. "My wife, Grace," I said, looking at those 10, 18-year-old kids with eyes full of hope, "always believed that honest work has more value than any college degree. Not because degrees are bad, but because there is dignity in creating something with your own hands, in fixing something broken, in building something that will last. You are all learning trades that will give you independence, pride, and purpose. Do it in her honor. Do it in your own." One of them, a kid named Jesse, came up to me after. "Mr. Russo, my dad died when I was 12. He was an iron worker. I wanted to follow in his footsteps, but we didn't have the money. This scholarship. You gave me back a dream I thought was lost. Thank you. Genuinely, thank you." In that moment, I knew I had done the right thing. That every dollar Michael wouldn't receive was creating something real, something lasting, something that mattered. And Michael, what happened to him? I heard through the grapevine that Trish left him 2 months after they lost the case. Apparently, she had married Michael, expecting to inherit a fortune one day. When she realized they would only get $300,000, which, after a divorce, would be just $150,000 for her, she decided it wasn't worth sticking around. She took the kids, Charlie and Lucy. My grandchildren. That part still hurts. I won't lie. There are nights when I think about them, when I wonder if they'll ever understand what happened, if Trish is filling their heads with lies about me. But then I remember Lucy said, "I'm sorry," that day, that in her 8-year-old eyes there was something genuine. And I have to trust that when she grows up, when she's older, maybe she'll seek out the truth for herself. Michael tried to contact me one last time, 2 months ago. Not by phone this time, in person. He showed up at my door on a Sunday afternoon. He looked different. Thinner. Older. Defeated. "Pop," he said simply. I didn't invite him in. We stood at the doorway. "What do you want, Michael?" I just wanted to tell you. Trish left. She took the kids. I'm alone." I waited. I said nothing. "And I realized you were right. About her. About me. About everything. And I want to apologize. For real. Not for the money. I get that's done. But for disrespecting you. For calling you those things. For not valuing you when I had the chance." I looked him in the eyes. I was searching for sincerity. and I found it. But I also found something else. It was too late. Michael, I said calmly, I appreciate your words. I really do. But an apology doesn't erase the consequences. You made your choices. I made mine. And we both have to live with them. But I'm your son. And you are my son. You always will be. But being a father doesn't mean being an idiot. And being a son doesn't give you the right to disrespect me. You learned this lesson the hard way, and I sincerely hope it makes you a better man. So, you'll never forgive me? I sighed. It's not about forgiveness, Michael. It's about me getting my dignity back, my peace, my self-worth. And I'm not giving that up again. Not for you, not for anyone. He stood there for a few more seconds. Then he nodded slowly and walked away. He hasn't been back since. Does it hurt? Yes, sometimes, especially on holidays, Christmas, Grace's anniversary, in those moments when the house feels too empty. But then Rose calls and invites me to dinner, or I get a letter from one of the scholarship kids telling me about their first big job. Or Carmen from the foundation sends me pictures of the bingo night they held in what will soon be my former home. And I realize I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm at peace. That night, after Michael left, I sat in my basement workshop. I had finished the forged box for Grace's letters. It was beautiful, if I do say so myself. Forged steel with copper inlays, designs of roses, which she would have loved. I placed the letters inside carefully, and at the bottom of the box I put a new note, a note I wrote to myself. Or maybe for whoever finds this box one day. Dignity has no price. Self-love is not selfishness. And defending your worth doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. If someone makes you feel less than you are, even if they share your blood, you have the right and the duty to protect yourself. Because at the end of the day, the only person who will live your life is you. Live it with your head held high. I closed the box. I ran my hands over the cool metal, feeling every line my hands had forged. And I smiled, because for the first time in years, in decades, maybe, I felt whole, not because of what I had, not because of what I had given, but because of what I had taken back. My dignity, my respect, my life. And that's it. That's my story. My name is Anthony Russo. I'm 68 years old. And today, 6 months after that afternoon at the airport, I can honestly say I got back something I thought was lost forever. My dignity. If my story touched your heart, if you felt something listening to it, I ask you to leave a like down below. Not for me, but for all the older mothers and fathers who are living through similar situations right now. So they know they're not alone, that there's a way out, that there's hope. I'd like to know what city you're listening from. Write it in the comments. Chicago, Austin, Miami, Los Angeles, wherever you are. It comforts me to know my experience might help someone in some corner of the world who maybe needed to hear exactly this. Have you lived through something similar? Are you that parent who gave everything and received little? Or maybe, are you that child who regrets not valuing their parent in time? Tell me. This is a safe space. There's no judgment here, only understanding. And if you know someone, an older person, who is going through a situation of abuse or family disrespect, share my story with them. Sometimes we need to hear that others survived to realize that we can too. Let me share the 3 most important lessons I learned in this process. Lessons I wish I had known years ago. Lesson 1. Protect what's yours, legally, while you are of sound mind. Find a trustworthy attorney. Make a clear will. Don't wait until you're vulnerable or sick. Prevention is your best weapon. Lesson 2. True love is measured in respect, never in inheritance. If someone only values you for what they can get from you one day, that person doesn't love you. They use you, and you deserve more than that. Lesson 3. Dignity has no age. It doesn't matter if you're 50, 60, or 80. It is never, ever too late to set boundaries. It's never too late to value yourself. It's never too late to say, that's enough. I lived 68 years being the man who always said yes, the one who always forgave, the one who always gave one more chance. And look where it got me, listening to my own son call me useless while he spent my savings. But I also lived to see the moment where I said, enough. And that moment saved me. I don't know what will happen with Michael in the future. Maybe one day he'll truly understand what he did. Maybe not. But that's not my responsibility anymore. My responsibility now is to myself, to honoring Grace's memory, to living the time I have left with peace and dignity. Every night before I sleep, I sit in my workshop. I work on a new fence. I listen to the same classic rock that Grace loved. And I think about the words she told me 3 days before she died. Don't let anyone disrespect you. Value yourself. Finally, Grace, I'm doing it. I'm finally listening. If you made it this far, thank you. Thank you for listening to the story of an old iron worker who learned, almost too late, that self-respect is non-negotiable. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories like mine. Real stories from real people who found justice, who reclaimed their dignity, who learned that it's never too late to defend your worth. Because your story matters, your dignity matters, and you deserve to be treated with respect, always, by everyone, especially by your own family. I'll see you in the next story. In the meantime, remember this, which I learned through so much pain. Dignity isn't inherited. It's defended. Every single day, with every decision, until your last breath. A warm hug from Chicago, from my little workshop full of metal and memories, from the heart of a man who finally learned to love himself. Take care. Tony.